Welcome to another edition of the Mind Shock Podcast, True Crime Series. This is episode 2 of, I am your host, Bruce McGuire, here with fellow podcasters,
Brooke Davis, I do shit.
Maxwell Powers. And so there's been a lot of new info that's been coming out. That's been rattling the case a bit since the Oxygen series aired, and a whole lot more unanswered questions. So we're going to do a brief rundown again of the known facts and timeline problems. So once again, to reiterate from our previous episode, it's not 100%, we're not 100% convinced it was Maura Murray at the accident site. Could have been her, of course, but it's so suspicious that nobody had seen her in the day, the day leading up, in the 24 hours leading up to to her disappearance. It's just highly, highly suspicious.
Didn't you say that one of the guys who lived in the A-frame house had a girlfriend who looked just like Maura Murray?
Yes.
So that could throw people off.
The two brothers, the Moulton brothers, the one with the bloody red knife that whatever, there was a deathbed confession or whatever. And his history is really sketchy too. Supposedly he was involved in either some murders or assaults or something in the previous place they lived. But yes, his 17-year-old girlfriend at the time supposedly looked exactly like Maura Murray. Now, I don't know how that helps us really, other than the fact that I guess, well, the other thing is, if Butch Atwood lived right down the street, wouldn't he know the girlfriend and not get them confused?
But if it was dark?
Yeah, if it was dark, I don't know. And so brief rundown again. So she goes missing.
But wait. But didn't Bruce Atwood, wasn't there some kind of suspicion that he knew something and he wasn't going to tell? So if he knew that the person he saw wasn't Maura, and
the first investigator, I think it was Healy. I think the first PI that was investigating the case, he was convinced that Butch Atwood saw exactly what happened and who took her, because it happened right in front of his house, right in the street. So how could he not see unless he wasn't looking? And I don't know if we went over in this last episode, but coincidentally, for the first time ever, he was doing paperwork in his bus, parked in the driveway, instead of going into his house where it was warm with his girlfriend. Like what is going on there? It's like he's purposely wanted to keep an eye on the street to see what happened to the girl. Mm-hmm. Or, as some other people theorize, he was responsible and he either let her take shelter in his house, and he didn't want to say later, and then she moved on just so he wouldn't be responsible. People have flown that idea around, and that's why he acted so sketchy about it. So he might have not had anything to do with killing her, but he let her stay either in the bus or at his house for like a little bit before she moved on.
And a known fact, didn't they say that he talked to her and asked her if she wanted help or wanted to come with him? Isn't that
yes, that's what he says. But here's the thing: if he's an unreliable witness, because he had a heart condition, so he did take several polygraph tests, mm-hmm. and I think half of them came back he was lying, and half of them came back, so it was basically useless. Mm-hmm. So, but if he's not, if we're not using him as a reliable witness, we can't trust anything he says.
Yeah.
So what do we really know?
Now, you said he's dead.
Yeah, he moved to Florida, and PIs still flew out there to interview him in Florida. So his wife is still alive, though. So someone could still ask her, because she was the one, she called the police as well, and I think that's the phone call that they don't want to release the log of, is the Atwood call. That's the one they didn't release. So they released the transcript of the Westmans, but they wouldn't release Atwood's.
Okay, and now, and so you said that he's terrified because if he did see something, there was something that scared him enough to keep his mouth shut.
As well as all the neighbors.
As well as all the neighbors.
The Westmans and the Marats and their ever-changing stories.
Now, can you make a connection? Because you said that there was, and I think I read this as well, that there was a police officer who went off the grid the night that Maura disappeared. And didn't he have like some murders under his belt, and wasn't he murdered?
Okay, so there, you're talking about Bruce McKay.
So wait, so if Atwood saw something that terrified him enough not to say anything, if he if he suspected that he knew who the murderer was and the murderer would keep murdering, isn't that a viable connection?
So I don't know how many murders he had, but he supposedly he like pepper sprayed old women and you know, just randomly assaulted people. He was known for his
no one's above an ass whipping.
he was known for his illicit behavior and violation of citizens' rights. And there was some guy, Lino Kenny, I think, shot him after he was tired of being harassed. And then McKay had some kind of civilian buddy who supposedly they were in cahoots with each other, and that his buddy actually lived like less than, I think, a half a mile from the crash site. So if Maura went running in one particular direction, she could have ended up in his yard as well. But yeah, McKay was supposed to answer. So another thing we didn't talk about...
Didn't his buddy shoot the guy who shot him?
Yes. Yeah, it's really creepy, actually, because his buddy came out of nowhere, shot him, and then Kenny actually had a passenger in the car. And he was pointing the gun at the passenger, McKay's buddy, not McKay, and told him to pick up the gun because he wanted to shoot him too. And he was too scared to pick up the gun. He's like, I'm not picking up the gun. And I think this was all on dash cam recorded, so you can find the footage. It was released. Anyway, to answer McKay, there was several suicide calls that night. And I've heard this question asked, were the calls even real? Is there a way to corroborate that those calls were real? Because if somebody was trying to create a frantic situation that night where nobody can place anybody at any time and cause crazy madness, if they had put in a bunch of fake calls so that all the officers are scattered and nobody would ever know anything. And McKay was en route to one of the calls when he canceled it and then just shut his radio off.
Okay.
What was he doing in the time that Maura went missing?
Wow.
And the plot thickens even further when there's another witness other than witness A, witness C. And so she drove by the scene even earlier, and Maura's car was already there, and there was no police vehicle there.
Okay, so
that the timeline is completely whacked.
So she drove by a half hour before the crime supposedly was committed, and Maura's car was already there and empty.
I'm pretty sure it was before.
Yeah, that's what I mean.
It might have been, if it was after, that's also suspect because there was no police there either.
Yeah. Why would they leave her car unattended?
There was some major problem with the timeline.
Yeah.
And so...
I can wonder why. I mean, I can see why, because just what you and I have discussed right here tonight, I need a timeline.
Yeah. Well... Yeah, there's so many problems with the timeline. And then there was supposedly 2 other accidents that night, and that was like the police officer being towed out of a ditch. That was the drunk Williams, I think, cruising around.
Okay, now...
And then Cecil Smith supposedly switched vehicles with him or something.
Okay, wait, so the guy... What was the name of the tow truck driver who towed Maura's car? Like, what...
I think was that the last name? Guy, I think?
So he was the one who towed Maura, and the guy who towed the other guy was the other tow truck driver?
Yeah, and that tow truck driver is the one they refused to interview for the Oxygen series because he can verify that Cecil Smith was driving a sedan and not an SUV.
And wasn't he mad that he didn't get the Maura Murray call?
Yeah, because he was supposed to get the money from it. Yeah.
All right.
He was sent away. I think he was he was showing up, and he was sent back.
Okay.
As if they had some kind of plan in motion, and he wasn't part of it.
Gotcha. All right. So he wasn't buddy enough.
Yeah, there's so many problems with the whole thing. And so, so you got, the witness C thing, and also we didn't really touch upon the damage on the vehicle. So the damage on the car was not consistent with hitting a tree or a snowbank. And even the Westmans reported that the sound they heard was some kind of a weird thunk and not like a tree crashing sound. Although they later changed their story. But if you go back and look at the original reports, they were quite different. They said there was a sound of acceleration and then a thunk.
Okay.
So there's another theory that Maura's car was already being towed with just like a chain setup. So she would still have to be in the car, or someone would have to be in the car, and they would still have to hit the brake and everything.
Okay.
And after they made that nasty turn, the truck accelerated or braked and then braked, but then whoever was in Maura's car didn't brake fast enough, so they crashed into the back of the tow truck. And that's what the damage on the vehicle looks like.
You know what I think was an injustice to the whole towing was in the documentary, they kept showing the car from the reenactment that had no damage on it. So even when I was watching the special, I'm like, oh, look, that car has no damage. Then when they went and showed her actual car in the impound,
Yeah.
I'm like, how did all this damage happen? But I believe, wasn't it a reenactment of when they showed her car in the place where supposedly she left it? That was a reenactment, wasn't it?
Yes.
And that car had no damage on it.
Yes.
Yeah. So I think people think she had no damage on her car, and then when they saw her car in the impound, they're like,
And
how did
there
that
was
get so
also, I
damaged?
don't know if we touched on this in the last episode, there was also conflicting reports on what happened. So the CPU on the car showed that it tried to be started 7 times.
Okay.
Now the Murats across the street actually reported the car being backed up after the crash.
Okay.
So there's like a lot of little inconsistencies in the airbags deployed. Like what happened? And so, there's just a lot of problems with the scene.
Yeah.
No way to verify any of it. Now, do you want to get into the boyfriend now? Billy Roush.
Yeah, I almost want to do it in chronological order so that it makes sense to the casual listener, because right now I think only the expert listener is going to be able to to keep track
Well,
of what we're talking about.
I thought we went over the basics of the case in the first episode, right?
Yeah, but so they're going to have to go back and rewatch the first one before they watch
Yeah.
the second one. Get some extra.
I mean,
views
to
here.
kind of go back right before the crash, there was a party the previous weekend, which several details released. Basically, there was a guy involved with Maura, and that was one of her friends, Kate's cousin, and supposedly the police did clear him. But then, several days before that, there was
Yeah, but don't they suspect that she may have been raped by him?
I don't know.
No.
That's something they don't really release.
Yeah.
And the father didn't really say. He said they told him what happened once, and that it has nothing to do with her going missing. Although if that put her into some weird mental state, it probably would have something to do with it. So I don't know.
Why she would be willing to travel that far and just leave because, she had a traumatic experience.
Unless that phone call the previous Thursday was her sister asking for her help, her sister Kathleen, who was in rehab, and then Kathleen's boyfriend, Tim Carpenter, is a suspect in the case.
Now, isn't there new information on the sister?
Yeah, they
Calling
took
her into question?
They took her blood. They took a blood sample from her as if they were going to match it against the sample in the car.
Okay.
As if there was some kind of struggle or something. And that's another weird thing. The police have never released the photos from the crash site of the car, of the inside of the car, or any kind of test they have done. They never really said what they did, what they didn't do. So we don't know. But yeah, so if she was going up to help her sister and there was some kind of altercation. And Tim Carpenter, I think, has since had a stroke, so he can't talk or really say anything.
Oh, how convenient.
So we don't know what happened. Like, and I don't think an alibi was ever corroborated with him. And some other guy close to the case who was helping with the search or something, who said he saw people dumping bodies in barrels at some location, he identified Tim Carpenter on site to Fred, I think.
Okay.
And for some reason, Fred, I don't know. Fred didn't really seem to point the finger at him specifically. I think Fred's still going with the local dirtbag theory, which there's so many suspects in the area, between the police, the people on the A-frame, the McKay guy, all these other shady characters living in the area. Which I don't think we touched on this either. A lot of the people living there are from like Rockville, Tennessee or somewhere or whatever, some other place, and like a lot of the residents, like a whole bunch of them, all come from the same town, and they just happen to move to New Hampshire.
And wasn't there some kind of big cocaine running conspiracy in that area.
And possibly human trafficking
Oh,
showing
geez.
up in the town minutes on how they have a huge human trafficking problem. And if the police are involved, or at least some of the police, that would explain a lot of the weirdness, even if they didn't have anything to do with her.
Gotcha.
If there was something else going on that night, and she just happened to stumble in the middle of it.
Well, yeah, and that would give all the people reason not to say anything this time, because if they
Yeah.
open their mouth this time, they could be implicated.
And
on
if
something that
McKay
happened
was
last
an insane loose cannon, that possibly could be why the Westmans and Butch Atwood didn't want to say anything.
They were too terrified to say anything because they would be the next one.
Yeah.
And so wasn't there a guy who was like just found dead or shot dead on his lawn?
Yeah, I think was that Conrad? I forget. There was I think it was a police officer.
Was that a
who
couple
said-
years later?
Yeah, a police officer who said that he knew something about the case, and then he was whacked.
And wasn't that like Unsolved? Didn't they?
Yeah,
just
no, they've
totally
never.
push that
Nobody knows
to the
what
side.
happened. Nobody knows that mystery.
The guy comes outside and gets killed,
Yep.
and everybody's like,
mystery.
"Oh, don't worry about it."
Yep. It's a mystery in the town.
Oh, jeez.
Yeah.
Is there anything new with the secret locations, latitude and longitude, where they were getting phone calls saying, "Oh, go up here"?
No, but
No,
I want to get into Billy Roush.
I don't even remember who Billy Roush is.
That was Maura's boyfriend.
That was Maura's boyfriend, the West Point guy.
Yeah, the other suspicious thing is how he was able to get leave so quickly, because he's not married to Maura, she's not immediate family.
And he was
basically got the leave
right?
before they even knew what happened.
Yeah.
And as far as they knew, it was just a drunk driver abandoned a vehicle. That's you can't just get leave for that. You're going out with somebody who abandons their car because they're drunk. Like, that's what they were operating on at the time.
Yeah.
It wasn't any kind of crazy murder.
So then why do you think he got leave? Like, how could he? Like, what kind of conspiracy theory?
I have no idea. But his
What was he
phone
doing?
logs,
What was he doing exactly during the time she went missing?
he was on the phone. He was actually on the phone.
Mm-hmm.
So his phone logs are highly suspicious. So
Yeah, but I mean,
they-
what was he doing, like, in life? Where was he?
He was supposedly stationed at a military base.
He was stationed
but
at
when
a
a
military
PI
base.
called to confirm with the commanding officer,
He had already
he
left.
he couldn't get the commanding officer to corroborate that he was actually at the base.
Oh, gotcha.
But they do have his flight log, and when he landed in New Hampshire or wherever, like the day after.
But what logical reason would the military have to give him leave to rush?
Nobody can come up with one, because at the time, I don't know. Well, here, let me go back to his phone logs.
But here, let me just throw something crazy out. So what if he went AWOL and killed her? Wouldn't that give them reason to cover it up and try to make it as
Why
if?
would they cover for him, and what would it have to do with the police?
Yeah, I have no idea. I'm just trying to figure out
Yeah.
like why would they corroborate or not corroborate? Why would they allow us to think that they gave him immediate leave to go investigate his
That's a
girlfriend?
good question. Maybe to think that they're nice and lenient?
Oh, your girlfriend's missing. Here,
To get more people to join the military?
go investigate. If your girlfriend goes missing, we'll let you have leave.
I don't know. But here's so his phone logs. He made like 85 phone calls, was on the phone for like 6 hours or 8 hours of the day before she went missing and the day she went missing. And he was frantically calling people who knew her, including former West Point friends and professors. And
But wouldn't that wait? I never thought about this. But wouldn't that were they still together at that point?
yes.
So if he was privy to information that there was a problem, like say her sister, this, that, and the other thing,
That seems to be the case.
and he was worried about her before she went missing,
Yes.
he would call all those people.
Yes.
And he would, and he might even put in, because all right, say Maura talked to her sister, and some nasty shit was going to go down in a couple days. And she told her boyfriend put in for leave, and it might be the appropriate amount of time for
Yes,
leave.
it's possible.
And because he was trying to get to her before she went to go talk to her sister and get
It's
caught up
possible.
in the nasty shit.
It's possible.
Oh,
So he
man.
definitely knew. So there was definitely
So
a
he
reason
definitely knew something.
for his phone activity is beyond weird.
Yeah.
And then so here's the thing. Okay, so another particular phone call that's been in question is the Red Cross phone call. the one where he originally said it was Maura whimpering, and then that whole timeline and story got completely changed to, oh, that was just the Red Cross calling him to inform him about something. And had nothing to do with Maura. Okay. And he also deleted the message. Now, other information says that the police were able to recover the message and they did investigate it, although the results of that investigation have never been released.
Okay.
Now, here's the thing. If that was Maura who called him, that was like the following morning, that morning, that would mean that she got outside of the search radius. And there were, at the time, there were more payphones. It's 2004. And some people think it was like the Lost River campgrounds area that had a payphone, and they're calling for a new search for the body there. However, she didn't say anything in the phone call. She just whimpered. Now, if she was too cold to say anything or someone was with her, I mean, it's a whole new set of problems if that was her.
Yeah, but how long was the line open? 2 minutes?
A couple minutes. I don't know.
Yeah, well, I mean...
3, 4, 5 minutes.
If she was so cold that she couldn't say anything, then she probably would have died before the phone call ended. Like, if you're freezing to death, if you can't say something in 2 minutes...
If she used the calling card, she had to have plugged in all the digits correctly, so she would have to see them and put them in intelligibly, otherwise the phone call wouldn't go through.
Yeah, and you would figure at that point she's coherent enough to say, help me, help me. Yeah.
The whole thing doesn't make sense.
Yeah, because I'm not buying it. Because I mean, you
don't think it was her?
Well, no. I'm saying you watch people, climb Everest. You watch them run marathons. You watch them do all kinds of stuff, and they fall down and they can't move, and they can utter some. Even if it's incoherent, they can be like, "Oh, the mountains are high."
Yeah.
The grass is green.
Wait, so do you think it was her or no?
No. It may very well have been. I just don't. We need to discuss why we think she wouldn't say something.
Well, actually, we have to go back. We have to go back even further. How do we know it was her at the crash site, or even her making the call? It could have been. Well, why would anybody else be calling?
Well, if we're going to assume it's her, what would keep her from speaking? That's more of the line of thought that I'm going along. I think she would be able to say something, if not the first 20 or 30 seconds. 40 seconds, she's going to say, "It's Maura." But why wouldn't she?
What do you think?
Oh, I forgot you were here.
Well, I'm a little lost. I'm kind of
following.
I'm following, and I don't want to interrupt because I don't know. I'm just listening right now.
Just ask questions. We have a phone line, right? People can call in?
No.
Oh, sorry.
Did you say, who are you talking about?
Maura Murray.
Okay, you said Laura, and I was like, this is Maura, so like...
I said, yeah.
Oh, so you made a mistake.
I said Maura, and you heard it.
Oh, I heard it as Laura? Okay, never mind.
Yeah, I don't know Laura.
Neither do I.
I thought you said Laura before.
Oh, yeah, no, so... I meant Maura.
Yeah,
or said Maura, whatever, yeah.
Everything is bizarre because it seems all these unrelated people are all lying or covering for something that may not have anything to do with her going missing, but they just can't be trusted in any capacity. And I still keep going back to what happened at UMass. Because in the previous car accident that she had in, where she was supposedly drunk, she got let off the hook, and the police cadet was never named for some reason. So this goes back to the theory, is she a confidential informant? Was there some kind of weird undercover FBI agent doing some kind of a sting where they can't release any information about anything?
Well, yeah, but it would have to be a bigger picture, because if two people know a secret, someone's talking. You know what I mean? Like, let alone you get all these people. Someone would slip. I really can't believe that this many people would toe the line. Somebody would say something.
So why haven't they?
Well, that's...
But why wouldn't someone else say something about something else?
You have to be in a position of power strong enough to threaten what people have. So, like, if you're in the FBI, CIA, government, if you could go to their house and say, look, I'm going to take your shit and put you in prison, then those are the types of threats that keep people quiet. All right, if an alien crashes at Roswell, and then the military comes along and goes, we're going to take your wife, take your children, and burn your house down if you ever mention this again.
But they still did, though. People still did.
Yeah, I know, but that's the type of threats that keep people...
Different question, then. So Maura's older sister, Julie, she works for the CIA. Like, what? That's another problem I have. Couldn't she have gotten some kind of clearance? You don't think anybody, like, did you, in the Oxygen show, did she seem deceptive in any way? Do you think she knows what happened?
She didn't seem, well, it...
Do you, because if she's the CIA, somebody could have at least, just as a courtesy, could have said something to her, at least in general.
Well, yeah, but my problem with her being in the CIA is she didn't seem quite concerned enough, which makes me suspect that she might know something. If you look at the little brother was devastated.
Oh, yeah.
You look at the older sister was like, well, you know.
Something seemed off, but I couldn't tell what it was, and I couldn't tell if it had anything to do with Maura. It could be something completely else.
Well, I mean, if... All right. Either she was like, you know, Daddy loved Maura better, and now I am the lead sister. Okay, that would be... But I don't think she's like that. So... I think that she is probably privy to some information that we don't have, because she seemed a little too okay with the whole thing. In contrast her with the brother
and the father.
Yeah. Like, I'm just talking siblings, because the parents are always going to be, you know, oh my God, my daughter. But the brother's like, you know, I'm writing songs and poetry, and I can't speak 3 words without crying. And the older sister was like, well, you know.
The cops never contacted me, and that's strange.
It just seemed she was, either she knows something or she was.
Well, let me go back to another point that I can't get over. How did they know it was Maura in the car? Because they had that bulletin out for her immediately. How did they know it was her? They already knew it was her. They already must have run into her. I keep going back to that. Did the police stop her prior, and was she running from the police at the moment of the crash?
Well, that's another thing.
And if she was being towed, how is that possible?
If the police, all right, to one of my previous statements, if the police are covering it up, they have enough power to keep the citizens at bay and quiet for a little bit if they're kind of suspect. I mean, look, if they have rogue police officers that are like shooting people and pepper spraying old ladies, I mean, you know they're going to back it up. So if one of those officers comes to your house and says, you know, shut the hell up, you might shut up, you know?
Yeah. And another thing we never touched upon is one of Billy Roush's friends from West Point. Mm-hmm. Like, the wife of the friend came down to North Haverhill and started interviewing the neighbors on what happened to Maura. How weird is that?
Why would she do that?
I have no idea. And some of her notes are, like, the most compelling, because they were right after the accident. And, like, Butch says more stuff. Those interviews are
that's
bizarre.
Really strange.
That's very bizarre. She's not a PI. She's not a police officer.
Yeah, but why would she? How far is West Point from where Maura disappeared? Like, how far would she?
It's New York State. A couple hours. I don't know. Not that far.
So yeah, but why would she do that though? Like,
I have no idea. It's almost as
to help a friend of a friend.
No. This is my first guess.
Uh-oh.
It's almost as if they knew something and they wanted to find out what other people knew.
So like West Point and those people and Billy.
It's almost like they knew something and they wanted to find out how much other people knew. Because that's the only reason I can think of. Because why else would anybody do that?
So if Billy's like, hey, why don't you go interview some people and see what you can...
To see if Maura told them anything, maybe?
Yeah, but that means that girl would have to have been in on it at least superficially, because why would she...
Yeah.
You know, like, can you imagine if you say to your girlfriend, or if you're someone's boyfriend, and your boyfriend comes up to you and he's like, why don't you drive a couple hours and interview some people on this missing girl? You'd be like, no, I'm not going to go out there, you know, like to some strange hillbilly hick inbred town and interview a bunch of people that are tight-lipped. I'm not going anywhere near this shit.
Yeah.
Like, why would a girl go out there to interview for a missing girl? Did she go by herself?
Maxwell, hearing all this stuff, isn't this case just really weird?
It really is weird. I mean, there's so many.
Everything about it is weird.
So I have very little information, like maybe like a part of the one episode of the documentary. So, and just from hearing all your stuff, so I'm just listening and learning right now, and it is kind of weird. Like, no one really knows for sure, and like all these. Well, I like the new stuff that you're talking about. It's kind of
and I don't know if we mentioned this in the last podcast, but the assistant track coach that she was seeing for a time.
Oh yeah.
Apparently, he works for the Department of Defense now on some top secret projects. What's up with that? I mean, of all the people that could be involved, like.
All right, I'm gonna have to go out on a limb. The last time I heard anything like this, I think Jim Starling, a writer artist for Marvel, had a graphic novel called The Price. And if they all got to, and in this graphic novel, all the people who wanted power had to sacrifice that which was the most precious to them in order to gain the power. So, if Maura Murray's sister, who then started working for the CIA, and if this guy who now is working for the Department of Defense,
I think she was working. I think her sister already worked for the CIA.
What if they all got together and they had to sacrifice Maura in order
That's
to get what they really wanted? Because why would they how could they fast track? There's too many divergent points of interest.
But what about all these other people? Why are they involved? And why are they not talking? And it doesn't make any sense.
If you're going to
And we
sacrifice
didn't
somebody
even
for
touch
power,
upon the Loon 3.
if you're going to sacrifice somebody for power, you're going to be quiet.
What about those 3 guys from Loon that worked at Loon Mountain that didn't show up for work the next day? How do they fit into all this? And supposedly there's
Were they ever interviewed?
I don't know. Nobody knows anything about them. I think their names were released online, possibly, but then people were saying it was different guys. So that's one of the biggest questions.
Did they show up for work 2 days later?
I don't know, but apparently people heard them talking in a diner like several days later. It was a highly suspicious conversation.
I'm still thinking that if everybody got together and sacrificed more in order to get power and a fast track to fame and
Let's
glory,
discuss something we hadn't discussed before.
then think about it. Then they would all be quiet.
Well, what about the communal slaying angle?
They all got
have you thought
promotions
about
after
that?
this. They all got promotions.
The
Communal what?
The communal slaying, where a whole community does like a devil
a slay.
sacrifice.
Well, yeah, but that's what I'm saying. In order to
No, but
to
the
gain,
Hebrew community, not her family. Her family doesn't know about it.
well, no, I know, but I mean, but just think about it, because then you could get everybody to shut up because everybody has a vested interest in her disappearance.
The neighbors.
Well, we don't know what they wished for.
This case is just too bizarre. And
Well, yeah, but right. How could you keep so many people quiet? That's the thing that.
But what if
that
they
I
don't
keep
really
coming
know
to.
anything? Is it possible? Is it possible? Is it possible that something happened that they didn't really see? So yeah, they were afraid to guess that it was, let's say, McKay or whatever. Maybe they did see a police go real quick, but they don't really know.
All right,
Maybe Maura went willingly.
People aren't that good at keeping secrets. All right, if Maura had wrecked her car, walked off into the snow, and fell down a well and froze to death, and we never found it, that would be the only way that everybody could keep a secret because nobody knew anything. There's too many people.
Do you think it's possible that she just walked off on her own, made it to the campgrounds, made one last phone call where she wanted to say something to Billy, but just changed her mind?
Yeah, just changed her mind, and so she whimpered because she was crying.
Yeah, and then she just hung up.
Like someone trying to break up with someone and they can't do it.
Yep.
And then what
Billy
happened to her?
What?
She kept
Nobody knows.
I'm sorry, who is Billy again?
Her
boyfriend. But the thing is if she did make it out, it's hard to believe that she didn't like.
I don't think. Well, she couldn't have made it out
Because she would have came back for her mom's funeral. I mean, it's just like if.
Oh, no, I wasn't insinuating that. I was saying if she went off on her own free will, and because I don't think there's anything near that camper. I think she would have to cover like another 40 miles or something to get to civilization.
Yeah, so she could have just fallen down somewhere and got covered over and eaten by animals and then that but I'm being serious. It sounds like satire and hyperbole. If she walked off and disappeared into nature and nature consumed her, nobody would know anything, and therefore it would sound like everybody was hiding something.
Right.
All right, because I'll reiterate. I don't. You see, this is a problem that I have. When anybody tells me that more than one person is going to be able to keep a secret, I don't believe it. And so, like a whole town, I can't see a whole town being able to keep a secret unless, like, they're being held at gunpoint. Unless Maura left on her own, and let's say she got to the campground, and she made the call, and like you said, she was reticent about speaking to her boyfriend, so she just whimpered. And then if she went off and died and was like reclaimed by nature, every person who was interviewed would potentially be a suspect, and their line of questioning would sound funny.
Let's go back. Okay, but
because think about it. If you
what does that have to do with covering up at UMass? What does that have to do with the police officers not releasing the photos? What does that have to do with there's too many?
Well, because
there's too many problems.
Yeah, but what if there were other problems that we're not privy to? Like, what if her boyfriend said, what if she said, I'm gonna out, you know, I was having an affair with one of the West Point instructors, and I'm going to out him. And like, what if she called everybody and said, everybody, I'm going to out everybody, and then just went off and everybody
So
scrambled.
she was arranged to get so they arranged to kill her?
No. And then they all are scrambling, trying to cover their butts, and then she just accidentally falls off the grid on her own, and everything that everybody else is doing is panic because, all right, what if everybody slept with Maura? Like Maura's boyfriend, like the college professor, the West Point, you know, the head of West Point, like, what if everybody? And then she said, I'm going to out everybody, and then everybody's just in a panic, and then she goes and disappears. You'd have everything that we're talking about. Her boyfriend would be on the phone for all day long talking to all the West Point people. It would be a madhouse. I'm just saying.
So that's what you think happened?
And I'm trying to come up with I'm trying to come up with a way that answers how everybody could keep a secret, and why would everybody be?
So I still have trouble. Why won't the police release Butch Atwood's phone call?
Like, why are they all corroborating?
Answer me that. Why, if it was something like that, what is the harm in releasing the Butch Atwood 911 call?
Well, what if Butch tried to molest her? He found this girl dazed from hitting a tree in the middle of the night, and he's like, "Come into my bus, pretty."
But so why won't they release the 911 phone call of his?
Because what if he was crying, saying, you know, I tried to molest this girl.
So what? Why don't they release it?
Oh, they're not going to, you know, he's the school bus driver. They're covering up for their own. He drives the little kids to and from school. I'm glad, like, it makes no sense. All right, this sounds like it doesn't make sense, but what I'm trying to do is figure out, like, why would so many people either corroborate or hide some...
I don't know. It doesn't make any sense.
There's too many divergent points.
And then why won't they just release all her files? Like what? There's problems in every. And then why would one of the Moulton brothers say that his brother had a deathbed confession that he killed her and give him the bloody knife? And where was that bloody knife even being held that whole time?
Well, and who has the bloody knife now? Like the father mailed it to the police, and the police didn't test it.
I don't know. I think they said they tested it, but they wouldn't release any results, I guess. Or wait, they might not even confirm they ever got it. I don't know. There was different variations of the story of what the police said. I think at first they said there was no knife. Then they said they got it, they tested it, but they won't release the results. So I don't know what happened. We don't know what happened with the knife.
All right. This is my last one. I'm gonna try one more thing. If everybody in that town had something to hide that had nothing to do with Maura Murray, and then she comes through, every time they interview him, they would seem suspect because they would be hiding something. And what if it had nothing to do with Maura Murray's disappearance? They wouldn't release anything. They're like, oh, we can't release this because he's hiding something. The dispatcher's hiding something. The police are hiding something. Yeah. It's far-fetched, but think about it. What if everybody had something else they were guilty of?
I can see that.
But that's like a perfect storm, though. Everybody has to have something they're hiding. And then this girl comes along and disappears.
But here's another problem. Okay, so like the Marats across the street, they're saying the car was backed up. It was moved, and then the police officer supposedly was moving the car. The door was open, but then the police report says the door was locked. Like, what about all that stuff? Why are there so many problems with the little things that supposedly don't matter? Like, why are there so many problems with you know what I'm saying? Like, why should that matter? Well, it was unlocked or was locked.
All right,
why does that matter?
I don't really believe this, but my point with everybody having something else to hide, if everybody had something to hide, they would start to lie and make things up on questioning. And as soon as they lie on questioning, then that calls everything else into question. So they're like, oh yeah, they backed the car up.
Well, going back to an earlier point, like with the suicide calls, if those were all faked.
Oh, jeez.
If everybody's just making up a million different things on purpose, so nobody would ever know what really happened.
So yeah, all right, yeah, but wait. So something that you and I had talked about before, if that rogue cop, what was the cop's name that went off the grid that night?
Yeah, McKay.
What if all of those suicide calls were for him, so that all the dispatch would call all the cops and everybody would be busy, then he could go off the grid.
That's messed
He
up.
could go off the grid. Everybody is in the
that's
wrong place.
shady.
In the wrong place, and then he could go do
Yeah, that's
sneaky
shady.
shit.
That's shady.
Now, do they know where the suicide calls came from? Do they?
I believe so, but nobody. It's. I don't know how you would confirm them. That was just like somebody, like, because on the internet people were saying, "Can we confirm those?" Because like all the suicide calls that year, there were more suicide calls that night than there were in a whole year.
Because if they were all,
That's
Yeah.
that same night. Wow.
because if they were all on the other side of town than from where she was, so that he
Oh
could
yeah, I
get
don't
over.
think they were local. No.
You know, I mean, because if you're gonna have that many calls, chances are they're gonna be, distributed throughout. If they're all like on the opposite side, so that he's free to go over there. Well, wait a second. What if? Do you think he could have been part with like the slave trade? Like if he wanted to kidnap her?
I don't know.
No, but think about it though. If you have a whole group of people who can call and get the cops looking left while you kidnap somebody, right?
Riddle me this. What are the strange circumstances at the University of Massachusetts? Because none of that makes sense. Even before nobody even saw her that previous day. Was that even her up there? Why are they covering it from that side as well? It doesn't make any sense whatsoever. What is with all the problems there? Is it really a case of everybody has to hide there also, and it doesn't really have anything to do with Maura, but they're hiding all of their stuff?
Were there any disappearances from that university?
I don't know. There was a whole bunch of hit and runs that year, though. Like a whole bunch. Unsolved. All unsolved.
This is an infuriating case.
It is. It is indeed. It's like no matter where you look, there's a problem with like you can't. There's not like in most cases you at least have like one or two lines of reasoning that are solid and backed up and irrefutable. In this one, you got nothing. Everything is like you can't say anything's off the table. Like
All right, so
there's so many
All right,
problems.
so if you have West Point acting kind of shady,
Yeah.
you have the university acting kind of
Yep.
shady,
And then all the
and then
locals.
you have the local police department
and the locals
acting kind of
and the
shady,
locals.
and the locals. Yeah, but the police
and
could
possibly Julie Murray.
but the police could be putting pressure on the locals, so I kind of group them together because that could be a cause and effect if the police come along and threaten the locals, and the locals are like, oh shit. But the university, West Point, and the police department. Is there a common denominator other than Maura Murray?
That's interesting. Like what?
Well, that's why I said, is there anybody else who disappeared from the campus? And were there any disappearances from West Point?
That'd be interesting to look into. I don't believe so. I think they would have dug that up. There were disappearances in that town.
Because it would be all right, but superficially, if we could look to see if there was a common denominator other than Maura Murray for all three,
I see what you're saying.
because that could pull them in. Maura Murray.
So maybe it was somebody she knew, or maybe even someone she was meeting. If she was going up to meet somebody? And that's another thing we didn't go into, the Londonderry ping. So somebody tried to call her phone from that area, and there was a warrant put out to trace it, and the results of that I don't think have ever been released.
Is there
So they might have actually known who was trying to call her when she was up there. She didn't answer the call, but somebody tried, or the call didn't go through, but someone tried to call her, and it bounced off a cell tower like 40 minutes away.
Because this is going to start looking like the plot for a a mystery novel. Because if you had a military figure from West Point who gave a lecture at the university, who could have been involved with disappearances in that town, that's a second common denominator.
Yes.
And then when people look at Maura Murray, that's just bringing attention to something that people thought was going to fly under the radar.
Yep. So do you think that cell phone ping had anything to do with it? Or the other theory is that she had another phone, either a burner phone
Okay, well, all right.
or something else that would solve all these other communication
But it looks
problems.
like, but a lot of how many of these are legitimate red herrings? So let me go back and ask you, who was it that they suspect sent the latitude and longitude? Coordinates.
Which time? Because I think there was 3 different sets.
Because weren't those red herrings?
I believe so, unless they were saying, because I think one of them was one of them on no Bretton Woods. Somebody were saying she went to Bretton Woods, like a different ski area, not the one where she was buried near. But I don't. There was 3 different sets. That's a whole other can of worms.
Yeah, but all right. What if somebody was privy to what happened to Maura and they're actively calling and feeding false information to throw everybody off or to make everybody look guilty? Like, I mean, think about it. If someone's actively trying to cross everybody up,
Yeah.
then that could explain a lot of these
But
these
it seems
problems.
easy to do with a lot of these people. Like,
There's so many people who have guilty pasts
Yeah.
that are involved in this,
yep.
or may not be involved.
Oh, the other thing I've heard brought up is the video from toll booths. If those were released, if they can
They would
see
if somebody else was in the car with her.
right, or if
Or
it was
follow
even
her.
her, or if it was
Oh,
even
yeah,
her,
yeah.
because that's a pretty good way to say it's her.
But also there could have been a second car following her,
Yes.
and she could have gotten out of her car and into another
Yep.
car. A toll booth,
Yep.
you'd be able to see who was behind her.
And so I'm guessing that was looked into, right? Like they had to have checked.
We don't even know that. We don't know because all right.
That's how they ruled out the serial killer. I think, what was that guy's name?
Yeah.
Whatever, that serial killer that supposedly was in the area, they ruled him out because he was going through a toll booth and like across the country.
Yeah. He was on the
so
other
he
side of
didn't
the
have
country.
enough time to go do it, even though he killed other people in the area. So they ruled him out using toll booth footage. So why can't? So I'm sure they looked at the toll booth footage of her getting up there. So they would have to have, that would be a way to corroborate that was in fact her, if there was anybody with her. Or if there, if there was
Now,
another car involved.
why were they so reluctant to release the ATM footage?
I have no idea. And there's obviously
There has to be
Did they
more.
actually release it? Because I know
They did release it.
They
They released
did
the footage.
So,
Yes.
so what the hell was a big deal?
It seemed
It was a
innocuous.
big deal, and supposedly they possibly could have cropped stuff out.
Well, I
of
was
it,
gonna say,
or-
because
and
it-
couldn't, and it possibly cannot be like they might have edited the beginning.
It
and
seems
the end,
innocuous enough that they would have released
Yes.
it initially
Right.
if that's all it was.
So, right. So they might have clipped the beginning or the end if there was another car in frame or
Got it.
something.
Or someone attacked her or some shit like that.
Well, it's so grainy that they could have easily doctored it and just
Yeah.
I mean it.
And well, the one thing it does show is that she didn't look happy,
Yeah, but she wasn't like
and I don't
terribly
think,
distressed.
and I don't think the jacket matched the jacket they said she was wearing. And not that that means anything.
But she
just
seemed nonplussed either as well though. She didn't seem like she was under extreme duress.
Not a super
She
extreme,
was like,
no. She just seemed not happy.
yeah.
And supposedly she.
Well, who's
hadn't
happy about spending their own money?
And supposedly she hadn't slept in a while too.
Yeah.
Like she was up a lot. So.
Oh my goodness.
Oh, there was another thing. One of the last places she called was some like child protective services lady. She called her house.
What the?
Yeah, that was put up on her phone log or something. Or maybe it was a week. I think that was one of the last numbers she called.
Okay, and again, wasn't the initial search area relatively small?
Yes. I think it was 5 miles. Maybe.
Yeah, it wasn't. It wasn't large enough that if she just started walking, she could have walked out of it.
She could have walked out. Yeah.
Yeah.
And supposedly they never searched eastward. They only searched back into town.
Yeah, we need a live phone line because, like, right now I know there's people that want to call in and ask me a question.
Why don't you just give them your phone number? Just say your phone number.
Well, because you.
The case doesn't make any sense from any angle.
No.
And I think I like your idea that there's a common denominator that has nothing to do with Maura necessarily.
Well, I mean,
And that's
because
the problem.
there would have to be. I don't think she's enough
No, it
to
doesn't seem like she is.
bring in these divergent areas. You know, because
Yeah, it
West Point
doesn't
would be
seem
like, oh yeah, she used to go here. Well, okay, whatever.
Well, that week was the week the West Point investigation was announced. That they were investigating all these, assault or harassment cases.
Gotcha.
And coincidentally, that was also the morning that they announced the hit and run, the latest hit and run of, what was the name, Patrice Vassie, the Vassie hit and run, which they were saying she could have theoretically been involved with or loaned her car to somebody that hit him. And then, but why is he so valuable? And the other problem is, why were there like 7 or 8 other hit and runs that year? And was the campus police involved in that? And was the cadet they won't name have something to do with that? And why was he in the car with Maura?
This is as complex as the original girl with the dragon tattoo.
I haven't seen it.
No, you definitely need to see it.
No, but you see the problem here? Everything's a problem.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's kind of profound. I like that.
Yeah.
See the problem? Everything's a problem.
Like, shouldn't there be one area or aspect of the case that you could at least shut the book on and say, okay, well, it's definitely not that or not this?
Well, that's why the first 72 hours of an investigation are the most important,
Yes.
because, but they fumbled it so bad
Yep.
that, now we're left with the contaminated crime scene.
If you could get all these people to do a lie detector,
Well,
it would be helpful.
if you could just use your CIA powers and bring them all in and threaten them.
All right, well, this was another edition of the Mind Shock podcast. We'll be continuing to do true crime as well as other things, like we're going to get into some conspiracy theories next time.
And the Jinx. What's his name? I forget.
Yeah, but I'm a little unsatisfied with the whole more. We need people to write in the
If you have
question
any
comments
questions,
below.
comments, let us know. We'll probably end up doing another episode on this as more as more info is
If
released.
they give us theories, then we can go over them, and then we can, because
So we'll probably do that for episode 3. But, all right then. Hope you enjoyed the podcast.
this is Rook Davis.
Maxwell Powers, who didn't say anything.
And Professor Bruce McGuire. We'll see y'all next time. Bye-bye.
Later.